Hello, I'm here with my monthly look at the previews catalog from Diamond Distribution. I think this is the 5th straight month that I'm saying maybe it'll be the last one. I don't know, we'll find out. Alright, I think maybe that lighting will work a little better. Okay, I'm going to get into it. It was a kind of a light month, to be totally honest. So, from the IDW catalog, kind of sad that it is a collection of DC Comics art. Not something they've made. DC Covers Artist Edition, Volume 1. Jim Lee, Mike Mignola, Frank Miller, Jack Kirby, Wally Wood, and many more. 120 classic covers in the Artist Edition format. Just from the images they have here, you have Jim Ballant, Carmen Infantino, Bernie Wrightson, Jim Lee. So quite a variety. I don't know. Don't know if I think that's one that I have to have, but I bet it's a beauty. From the Image catalog. The Knives, a criminal book. This is the first new criminal comic in 5 years. Not sure really what the deal is here, but it's 200 pages, hardcover, the format that Brubaker and Phillips are making all of their work in now, but just continuing the criminal story. Seems like they're going to weave together some of the characters from the series, and I'm looking forward to it. I thought I'd mention a couple other things. Speaking of old Image titles coming back, Invincible Universe, Battle Beast number 4. It's on the 4th issue, and I didn't notice it until now. But this is a Invincible spin-off, written by Robert Kirkman. Art is by Ryan Ottley, at least partially. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting that they're going back to that well. Guess it makes sense since they have a TV show. And then Lazarus, Fallen number 2. I didn't notice that there was a number 1, but Lazarus was a pretty popular series from a few years ago, written by Greg Rucka, art and cover by Michael Lark. I've always loved Michael Lark's work. Don't know that Lazarus did a whole lot for me, but Michael Lark can draw. From Marvel, very slim pickings. Lately, some of their reprint stuff, they've had some interesting titles. This one, I frankly, grading on a curve, I put one down. The Incredible Hulk Omnibus Volume 3. Normally, I wouldn't even include something like this because it's getting into 70s Hulk, which, I don't think very highly of. Roy Thomas, Archie Goodwin, Steve Englehart, Lynn Wein, Jerry Conway, Chris Claremont, Steve Gerber. Looks like the art is pretty much all by Herb Trimpe, with Sal Buscema and Dick Ayers. It's a nice, solid art team. But anyway, there you go. Classic Marvel in the omnibus format. Kind of the worst format to read comics in, but what you gonna do? All right. Weirdly, from DC, I wrote down a bunch of shit. With the usual caveat, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to buy this stuff or that I'm even considering buying it, but things I thought that were of interest. So from these DC Finest books, these are their version of Epic Collections. $40 paperbacks, but they're all with hefty page counts. This one, DC Finest Batman Red Skies, written by Doug Minch and Roy Thomas, art by Tom Mandrake, Gene Colan, and Paul Gulacy, and more. let's see, what collects Batman 388 through 400, Batman Annual number 10, blah, blah, blah. Basically, Batman during the Crisis crossover. I've read none of those comics, so can't speak to whether they're any good. There's a real period of Batman during the 80s where it's just a lot of that stuff just isn't collected, and I don't know, it never showed up when I was a kid in quarter bins. People must have kept them. So that era is kind of a mystery to me, even though that era of Batman is frankly kind of my favorite. What I have read. DC Finest Hawkman, Wings Across Time. This one is going to be hard to resist for me. This is the Silver Age relaunch of Hawkman. Looks like about 6 issues of Brave and the Bold, maybe 7 issues. Hawkman 1 through 11. Then some issues of Mystery in Space and the Atom number 7. Just a nice fat chunk of Gardner Fox and Bob Haney, written art by Joe Kubert, Murphy Anderson, Carmen Infantino, and more. I really like those first few Hawkman stories from the Silver Age. DC put out a trade paperback of that stuff in the early 90s, and I read that a bunch when I was young. So that is very tempting to me. Also of interest, DC Finest Horror, The Devil's Doorway. And this is basically a little sampling of various, I guess they would call them horror titles that DC published, but they're more kind of mystery titles. House of Secrets, House of Mystery, The Phantom Stranger, The Witching Hour, The Unexpected. Sort of a few issues of each. Yeah. Some interesting names. Art by Jerry Grandinetti, Bernie Wrightson, Alex Toth. Those are interesting names. So anyway, don't know. This wouldn't be at the top of my list, but it would. I wouldn't mind reading it. Also, DC Finest, The Spectre, Wrath of the Spectre. This looks like it starts before the Michael Fleischer issues and then morphs into Michael Fleischer. It has a bunch of stuff that has never been collected in prior Spectre volumes, which is kind of interesting. I wonder why they went with the title, The Wrath of the Spectre, which has been used ad nauseum for the Fleischer Aparo run. So yeah, don't really know a whole lot about this one, but, mildly interested, at least. Those little compact DC editions, the $10 paperbacks, Batman Arkham Asylum. This one's kind of funny. It makes sense. It's an evergreen Batman title, but it's a little funny to me because they are smaller size books, and the only real reason to read Arkham Asylum is the Dave McKean art. The story isn't much to write home about, so I wonder how it reads in that small size. Don't think I'll be finding out. And then, okay, here's some odd collections from DC that I felt I had to note. Scooby Apocalypse Omnibus. This is sort of a refreshed version of Scooby-Doo, written by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. Art is by Howard Porter, Wellington Alves, Chris Batista, and more. So I'm not really coming there for the art, but for the Giffen and DeMatteis. Or DeMatteis? Is that how you say his name? Let me know in the comments if anyone knows. Anyway, they put out quite a bit of this material. 920 pages worth, which is pretty crazy. Don't know if it's any good. Batman 66 Compendium, written by Jeff Parker, Mark Andreyko, Michael Allred, and more. Art by Jonathan Case, Ty Templeton, Michael Allred, and more. That's a pretty good list of artists. I've seen these trades and haven't ever really had much interest, frankly. But this is just a big old fat compendium. 1,024 pages for $60. That's a pretty good deal. Gotta say. Also here, Batman by Grant Morrison, Book 2. I think Book 1 was solicited quite a while ago, but maybe my memory is playing tricks on me. But that is a well-regarded run, so I thought I'd mention it. Batman the Demon Trilogy, written by Mike W. Barr. I think he wrote the first two, and Dennis O'Neil. Art by Tom Greinberg, Norm Breyfogle, and Jerry Bingham. I don't know that I've read the third one, but I'm pretty sure I read the first two. Frankly, they're not that great, but I would note that they're all collected in one volume here. Sandman Mystery Theater Compendium 2, for the first time ever. The second half of Sandman Mystery Theater has been collected. They put out a few trades that I think got maybe halfway through, maybe a little more. So this is great news. It's a really fun series. It's a really wonderful series. Highly recommend it, frankly. Really entertaining stuff. Yeah, seems like it came out 100 years ago, and it has been about 30 years, I guess, since it started, which is pretty crazy. Wonder Woman by John Byrne Omnibus. 1,016 pages of John Byrne Wonder Woman. Pretty crazy. All of it's written by Byrne, art by Byrne, Sergio Aragonés, Norm Breyfogle, and more. That's quite a lineup. I think I read the first few issues of this when it first came out. Can't say that it really did much for me, but Byrne is an interesting figure, and so I always want to note when he pops up. All right, getting into the big catalog, which I will tell you feels a tiny bit smaller than normal. Not enough, frankly, but a tiny bit. All right. Okay, sorry, I got lost here. Let's see where we're going here. You know what? I'm just going to jump. We're going to start with an oldie but a goodie. Bone Deluxe Edition Part 1, The Valley. Soft cover. The novelty of this edition, yet another edition of Bone, is the size. These are 9 by 12, 352 pages. And this collects the first 2 books, so there will be 2 more of these in theory. So it adds up to a hefty amount by the end. I love Bone. I love Jeff Smith's art. Not going to pull the trigger on yet another iteration of Bone, even though I would love to see it at the big size. Just can't do it. But if you haven't bought as many different versions of Bone as I have, I would recommend checking it out. It is one of the great comics. From Drawn and Quarterly, He Rolled Me Up Like a Grilled Squid by Yoshiharu Suge. I don't know how many of his books they've put out now. I want to say 4 or 5, and I believe there were going to be 7 total. So they are closing in on Suge's whole output. Definitely worth checking out. From our friends at Fantagraphics. Hate Revisited. This is the trade collection of the miniseries that came out. I'm not sure when that was. A few months ago, I guess, at this point. It's a fun series. Nice revival. Has stuff that happens in the modern day and then flashbacks to the quote-unquote glory days of Hate and Buddy Bradley, the early 90s. Early to mid-90s, I guess. Pretty fun series, though, and several of the issues are out of print at this point, so this will be the only way to get it without tracking down the back issues. Lost Marvels number 2, Howard Chaykin Volume 1, Dominic Fortune, Monarch Starstalker, and the Phantom Eagle. Volume 1 of Lost Marvels came out this week with Tower of Shadows. Seems to be a lot of people who are excited about it. I hope that excitement extends to Chaykin. None of this is really prime Howard Chaykin, but as a Howard Chaykin fan, I'm happy to have any of his work collected. He's made a lot of comics, and they've appeared all over the place, so it's very hard to collect his work. A new book from Shintaro Kago, Brain Damage. This is a collection of short stories rife with skin-crawling suspense, visceral body horror, and pitch-dark humor, which sounds about right. This guy can draw his ass off, and hopefully it's not the first. Fana put out Dementia 21, but hopefully it is a continuation of a lot of his books coming out from Fantagraphics. Walt Disney's Donald Duck. Donald Duck Finds Pirate Gold. This is the complete Carl Barks Disney Library, Volume 1. So they published all of those Donald and Uncle Scrooge volumes out of order. They kind of started with what are considered the prime years and have been hopscotching around. We are now down to the last few books, and here we have Volume 1, the very first Carl Barks stuff. I wouldn't say it's a jumping on point, because you can really pick up any book at any time and read them and be perfectly entertained. And I would almost guarantee that you would be perfectly entertained. But if, like a lot of comics people, you cannot resist a number one, check out Volume 1 of the Carl Barks Disney Library. A reprint, or actually more accurately, a revised edition of Society as Nix, Gleeful Anarchy at the Dawn of the American Comic Strip, 1895 through 1915. This is a Sunday Press book produced in conjunction with Fantagraphics. This is a really great collection of early comic strips. The more of this material you see, the more you learn that, one, they really knew how to print back then, because they had so many beautiful strips, and two, the abilities of the cartoonists are way past what I think people would assume. We all assume that history marches forward and we all get better at everything as time goes by. Definitely not the case. You can check out Little Nemo to see that. But this full of fantastic cartoonists when they were really making it up as they went along. From Gemstone, the company that puts out the comic book price guide, The Overstreet. This is the Overstreet Guide to Collecting Comic and Animation Art, written by Robert M. Overstreet, with a cover by Joe Jusko, covering John Buscema's Silver Surfer #1 cover. And it's exactly what it sounds like. This is a guide to collecting art. As someone who has dabbled in that arena, I'd be very curious to know what's in here. I don't know if I'm curious enough to actually order it and find out, but I am curious about it. From Living the Line, a publisher that I always think is interesting, but I don't always pull the trigger on their books. The Rabagoo Race by Bonton Taro. It's a soft cover, 6x10, 104 pages, full color. And this is a Scottish cartoonist. I don't know anything about this, but I did see this ad, and I like the way that look very much. It has a kind of 80s independent comics vibe to me. So I'm very curious. And Living the Line always makes nice looking books. Here's another curiosity to me from Panini Comics. Requiem, Vampire Knight Omnibus Volume 1. This is written by Pat Mills of Judge Dredd fame. I guess not even really Judge Dredd, but 2000 AD fame. Wrote tons of stuff for 2000 AD. Basically founded the magazine. And art and cover by Oliver Ledroit, who I'm not familiar with off the top of my head. Anyway, it's a big 9x12, 252 pages collection of Requiem, a comic I know absolutely nothing about, but based on Pat Mills' involvement, I'm pointing it out here. I know there are some Pat Mills diehards out there. Here we go. Pantheon Books, Simplicity. Here's another book I know nothing about. The cartoonist is Maddie Lubchansky. The name sounds very familiar to me, but I can't place it. But the fact that it's published by Pantheon is notable just on its own. This is the company that's publishing Dan Clowes and Sammy Harcum. So that's a pretty good company to be in. So I thought I'd point it out. Don't know anything about it, and but I look forward to checking it out when it hits the stands. From Rebellion, always a fun group of reprints of material from 2000 AD or British comics in general. 2 of the Judge Dredd, the Complete Case Files, Simon & Schuster edition, 24 and 25. So these are the American editions. I'm trying to remember if this stuff came out already. And I believe so. But thought I'd point out, I haven't seen any of these in a long time in the catalog. So I have no idea if they're done with this series and not going to do any more. Or maybe they're waiting for more material to build up. Not really sure. I'm not really sure of a lot of things today on this video. From Scratch Comics, Fully Loaded number 3. I've pointed out issue 1 and issue 2. This is another great looking cover. Still haven't seen the first issue, so I don't know if it's any good or not. But at this point, I'm just going to point out each issue as they come. Unless they just keep coming, at which point I won't bother. From Time Bomb Comics, an outfit I'm not familiar with. Harker, Volume 1, The Book of Solomon. The first full-color, perfect-bound volume of a crime series that is a unique homage to classic TV detective shows filled with humor, wit, adventure, and devil worshippers. Oh, and pubs. 68 pages. This is one of 2, so there's going to be another one. 68 pages leads me to believe, I don't know what. I guess, I thought maybe this sounded kind of British, but then in the format almost seems kind of European. No idea. I don't know what this is. I might Google this and see, but I thought I'd point out, cover looks kind of interesting to me. Looks like something that's maybe a collection of a cult favorite from some point, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is just a new thing, and I have been drawn in. From Uncivilized Comics, The Jungle, number 1, written by Keenan Marshall Keller, art and cover by Tom Neely. This is the sequel to The Humans, which was published by Image originally, I believe, about a motorcycle gang. They're all apes, which I remember liking when I read it, but it's been a while. I think it's been a few years since they put one of these out. This is in a King Kong size magazine, Megavision, the format of your dreams. It does not give a it doesn't give the measurements though, so I don't know what the actual, but if it's magazine size, that's pretty nice. the original issues of the previous series were published at regular comic book size. So I do love Tom Neely's art. So getting it on a bigger canvas would be great. And then in the manga section, a couple things I thought I'd point out. Fanfare presents Ponent Mon. None of these are new books, but I thought I'd point them out since they got some real estate. The Solitary Gourmet, A Distant Neighborhood Complete, and The Walking Man Expanded Edition. There's a lot of people who think The Walking Man is the best Jiro Taniguchi book. Guess I should have mentioned these are all by Jiro Taniguchi. Really wonderful artist. Really blends a manga style with a bande dessinée style. Yeah, I recommend him if you've never tried him. I wouldn't say that I think any of his books are just out and out classics, but they're all very agreeable reads. And from Last Gasp, Barefoot Gen Omnibus Volume 1. This is, what does this have? This new edition features all new lettering throughout, as well as 4 pages in color for the first time. And this edition collects the first 2 Barefoot Gen books into a nice hardcover, 572 pages. If it's collecting the first 2 books, then my math tells me there will be 5 of these big hardcovers. That would add up considerably. But Barefoot Gen is, I don't want to say it's essential. I don't think it's essential, but it is one of the foundational manga in America texts. It was one of the first comics to really get a serious reprinting over here. Art Spiegelman, has always given it credit as a precursor to Mouse. And it's definitely a comic that's worth reading. So even if you don't want to pop for these new hardcovers, maybe keep your eye out for the old paperbacks. I won't say it's a fun series. It's not. It's about a kid surviving Hiroshima, but it's certainly a memorable one with some pretty terrifying imagery. That's it for me this month. Felt a little light. A lot of Batman at the beginning, which, I don't take very seriously, but happy to see another month of previews. Will we see another one? I don't know. At this point, I'm inclined to think we might, even though this could be famous last words. If you have any comments about anything I talked about, please let me know. If you want to yell at me for things that I left out, feel free to do that too. All right, thanks.